This episode of Witchpolice Radio is brought to you by our friends at the Park Theatre, who have a number of great shows coming up. For more information, visit myparktheatre.com.
Thank you to everyone who supports my dad's show. If you'd like to support Witchpolice Radio, go to patreon.com/witchpolice today.
You're listening to Garbage Hill, Winnipeg's first podcast network.
Welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I am at the mall again. It seems to be a fairly regular spot for doing these now. And we're talking about record label. I guess it's a reissue label, right? More than anything, or?
Yeah, kind of. I've got a new release coming out at the end of the month of an album that the band recorded back in 2012, 2013 that they shelved, and now it's finally seeing the light of day. So it's not really a reissue, but it is another old album, so I guess it kind of fits with.
Well, before you even get into that,
okay.
You want to introduce yourself, and the label Sounds Escaping.
Yeah.
I don't know much about it other than just kind of seeing things pop up over the last, year or so.
Yeah, year and a half,
media, and it seems like, from what I can tell, you do a lot of reissues of older local stuff, which is super cool.
Yeah.
So, if you want to just introduce yourself and kind of give some background, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Patrick Michaelishin, and I run a record label called Sounds Escaping here out of Winnipeg. It started June of 2 years ago. Because I wanted, there's a Calgary band called Forbidden Dimension, and I've been a huge fan of Tom Baggy's art and his music forever, and then started buying 45s well before I had a turntable.
Like collector items kind of thing?
Yeah, just to have them, just to have everything, but I couldn't listen to them anywhere. My grandma's turntable had a crap needle. I couldn't get to my aunt's place because she was always working. And I always wanted a singles collection. I had all the Cargo albums. I had all the compilations that they appeared on, but I didn't have a way to listen to all these alternate versions, non-album versions and B-sides.
Yeah.
So I started bugging Tom when I was 14, 15 years old to do a singles collection.
Just like randomly messaging or something?
I found him. Yeah, I found his email. This was like pre-Facebook.
Yeah.
I found his email address and I started sending him messages, and he kept saying no. And 14 years later, when I was 29, I think I finally wore him down. And he said, yeah. And after 14 years of bothering someone to do this, to do one thing, you kind of have to put your money where your mouth is.
For sure, yeah.
So I did. Came up with a name for the label. Took a while to do that. And when I was working at a restaurant, this guy that I was serving with his family, turns out he was a graphic designer who does a lot of stuff for the province.
Oh, cool.
We liked a lot of the same bands. He sent me mock-ups. He sent me a bunch of free mock-ups, and he said, like, this is a gift for you. And this television logo is what I picked, what I stuck with. I've slapped it on a bunch of shirts. I've made this 3D model.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah.
And which you can see in the banner.
Yeah.
It's a nice little stamp. I like the aesthetic of it. And so the Forbidden Dimension thing, the label was announced on June 1st of 2016, and the double CD 40 tracker came out on the 15th of July of the same year.
Okay.
So, and Tom was a great help. He didn't charge for any of the layout. He did it all for his Cargo releases, so he just basically did that all again. He wrote an 18-page history of Forbidden Dimension. Added a whole bunch of unseen artwork and photos and stuff like that. I got to write a little blurb in the booklet, which
that's awesome.
Made me feel amazing.
And they always have such cool artwork on their albums anyway. It's very distinctive. Like, you can tell it's a Forbidden Dimension record.
Exactly. You know it's a Tom Baggy.
Yeah.
It's one of those. He's one of those guys. He's got like such a distinct look about his stuff. So that was the first thing that I did, and then just kind of leapfrogging from that, one of the bands that Forbidden Dimension got me into was a Winnipeg group called Personality Crisis, who had broken up well before
it was 80s kind of era.
Yeah, it was like 80 to 84, I guess.
Yeah.
And they'd broken up well before I was born. And there's this set of albums off a Nanaimo label called Lance Rock Records. They did a two CD set or two LP set called Oh Canada, and it was alternative bands from that era, covering popular Canadian punk bands. Like
sounds familiar. I think I heard about
like DOA, Subhumans, Modernettes. Personality Crisis was the only Winnipeg band covered across both sets, which got me super, super excited. So when I was a teenager, I was going to HMV and Sam the Record Man and asking if they had any Personality Crisis, not knowing anything about how scarce they were, what formats they were available on, and either I got a weird cross-eyed look from the clerk, or if they were old enough to know, they would just laugh in my face.
It's not you can't find this anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It's out of print. It's gone. Nobody knows about these guys except for the hardcore punks.
Well, it's a pre-internet thing too, right? You can't just look it up. So
it was basically like my dad's friend has this record.
And for sure.
So I did the Forbidden Dimension thing, and it did quite well. I wanted to do something very Winnipeg after that, and I absolutely love this city. So I thought, what should I do? Personality Crisis. It's never been done. And as soon as I pitched the idea, people said, you also have to do Stretch Marks, because they used to play together. And then and then when PC and Stretch Marks broke up, Mitch joined Stretch Marks minus their vocalist, and they started Honest John.
Right, okay.
So they were like big in the 90s here in Winnipeg. So Mark's got a taco truck called the Habanero Sombrero. I went for tacos and I wore my Sounds Escaping t-shirt, and I said, hey, by the way, I have this record label. And before I even finished my sentence, he just said yes. I said, well, what I'd like to do is I'd like to take the Stretch Marks. He's like, yep, done.
Awesome.
And that was that. So Stretch Marks was locked down in about 30 seconds.
That's awesome.
And Personality Crisis, got in touch with Richard Dugay. He's a very social media savvy guy. He's been doing the music thing since well before Personality Crisis, and he's still doing it right now. And he lives out in North Hollywood. Got in touch with him. He said it's okay, but you got to talk to John Card from like SNFU and DOA, and played a bit with No Means No. And Personality Crisis. You got to get in touch with him. He's got the master tapes. So eventually I got in touch with John. It was a bit of a tooth-pulling thing. He said yes, but I won't do anything without Mitch Funk's blessing. So getting a hold of Mitch was the toughest thing. I got his phone number. I left about 10 voicemail messages for him over the course of a month, and he finally called me back, and he's like, listen, you're not going to stop. What the hell do you want? I want to release Personality Crisis on CD. He's like, well, whatever, man. I don't care. That's behind me. Do whatever you want to do. And then like 3 days later, I met him at the Pyramid at a gig. He did give me the old one up and down. I was wearing another Sounds Escaping t-shirt. And we talked for about 20 minutes, and he said, why don't you come over for dinner and we'll talk about it sometime. And now he's like one of my best friends. I see him once a week, and it's the weirdest. He's got all these stories of, playing gigs with the Ramones and Circle Jerks and Henry Rollins and just weird stuff like that. But he just, it's nothing.
It's old, right?
It's old, it's old news for him. But so we started that up, and then there was a zine back in the 80s called Pages of Rage that Chris Walter and Matt Bennett did. They wrote the liner notes for both the PC and the Stretch Mark sets. Nice. Doug Comiskey, who was like the scene photographer back then, got in touch with him, bought a bunch of photos, used those, and it's done very well. There's really a lot of people who are super stoked about it. PC even reunited last.
I remember hearing about that. I didn't go to the show, but I heard about it.
It was insane. So we're working on a CD DVD of that right now.
Nice, that's awesome. I'll look up the live recording.
Yeah, we got a 20-track live recording. Craig Boychuk, who's done the remastering of all of my releases so far.
Well, he's done tons of stuff locally too.
He's done tons. Oh god, he's got like over 300 releases with his name on it. He was at the show. He recorded the live room. But their original sound guy flew up from Joshua Tree, California.
Cool.
This guy, Patrick Hutchinson, who started in the Maritimes, went to school in Calgary, moved to Winnipeg, did sound for a bunch of bands, made his way west, did sound for like DOA, SNFU, and all those punk bands. Then moved down the coast and started doing sound for Caius, and then Queens of the Stone Age for 25 years, Dolly Parton, Jack White, Lady Gaga. Calls me up when I'm having dinner at Mitch's, and he's like, did you actually get these guys talking again? Yeah, we did. He said, good, because I bought a plane ticket. I'm doing your sound.
Awesome.
And it was just a giant love, and it was
everything worked out, right? I mean, everyone wanted to get involved, and they needed to get involved, I guess?
Yeah, it was guys. Some of them hadn't talked to each other in a decade or more, and I mean, there were a couple of road bumps here and there, but by the end of it, it was a reunion. My friend Paul flew in from Australia just for the show.
Cool, that's awesome.
Which was insane. Guys flew in from like the old Unwanted guys. All kind of reconvened in one place, flying in from all around North America.
That's super cool.
It was just a big, loving party. So we recorded it. We had a few high-def cameras set up around, so it's being edited together into like a punk show. got a bunch of video on my phone from the rehearsals, which
that's awesome.
were just mental. Like, all these guys just showed up, and it was like picking up where they left off, and they were just goofing around. They had their inside jokes, which were just
from 30 years ago.
From 30 years ago, and it was like no one skipped a beat.
That's cool.
So yeah, it all came together, and they're my most popular releases. They kind of helped me do other things for the label that haven't been as popular.
That's great. Is the goal of it to sort of just make it more available to people who missed them the first time around? Because I know that both of those bands are bands that I had heard of, being a kid in the 90s playing in punk bands or whatever. I always heard about them, but it wasn't really easy to get your hands, like you're saying, get your
hands on it.
Yeah.
It was. I guess it's to get it out there again. I'm not musical at all, and I just kind of wanted to put my smear on the music scene just in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Also, I'm one of those heretics who doesn't care for vinyl.
Yeah.
So basically, I wanted it on CD, and then I have 999 other copies that I have to get rid of.
Right. Yeah.
So as long as I can have it for myself,
just
like I have it for myself, and then if anyone else wants it, that's pretty rad. And luckily, people around the world have been wanting Personality Crisis and Stretch Marks. Forbidden Dimension is like 10 copies away from breaking even for me, which is fine.
That's awesome.
And then the release I did after that was a Montreal post-punk group from the late 2000s, early 2010s called the Ovoids, who I've been a fan of for about a decade.
I saw that on your Instagram, I guess. It was the only one I didn't recognize. Well, the one so far.
No one does.
Yeah.
No, so the band got their copies in Montreal, and they're all still doing music stuff. So they're kind of having it on their merch counters. Like, this is where we came from. I'm very, very proud of it. Craig made it sound amazing. We found the original. Is in the digital age, so it was all recorded in an analog studio, but it was all digitized for.
So it's quite easier to.
So it's a lot easier to get all this stuff, like with Stretch Marks.
Tape, right? Actually.
Well, Transistor 66 for their 100th release was going to do a reissue on vinyl. Back in the day, so they actually found the original tapes, had them baked, transferred, and they're gone. Like, they're disintegrate now. But nothing happened to that, so I bought the tapes off of Art. And
Art's been on the show too, actually. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Art's fantastic.
Great label too.
And he's done amazing stuff for the Winnipeg music scene.
Yeah, for sure.
I love the guy. He was very, very kind through the process of getting the Stretch Mark stuff. And, we haven't really talked much since, but I'm pretty sure he's into it.
Was there? I seem to recall at some point there was a reissue on vinyl of the Personality Crisis album.
Yeah, that came out on
2000 or something, maybe.
In 2010, I think it came out on War on Music.
Yeah. Okay, that's right. Yeah.
So that was
the Creatures for a While, right? Was that?
Their only album. So Creatures for a While came out on Risky in '83. It was reissued by Overground in '90, where they took off 4 songs and added 4 demos.
Okay.
They added 4 demos from 1982 from Calgary that their original guitarist Walter Cott was on.
Okay.
So Walter was with the band from the beginning, playing guitar, and left the band in '82 to start a family. And Creatures for a While came out with all these songs that he toured around North America playing, but he wasn't on the album. So this is kind of his first. It was his first time him being thrust into the spotlight with Personality Crisis. And when
retroactively getting him on the album for the
so it was his first time. Like, he's been a part of it for so long, and there's all these live recordings out there with Walter on them, but he was never on the album. And with the CD reissue, the entire second disc, because we have the 12-track Creatures for a While, we added 19 studio bonus tracks.
Oh, cool.
17. It's a 29-track double album, but the whole second disc is all Walter.
So you got both versions of it, I guess.
We got both.
That's awesome.
We got both versions, and Walter finally has his time, and he played the show, and he's got some lung issues right now, but he got up there and he freaking killed it. It was absolutely mental, and just the footage of him rocking out, and his kids are in the front row and just staring up at him, and he's staring back, and he's got this grin on his face that I see every time we talk about Personality Crisis now. Yeah,
I remember seeing a lot of photos from the show, and like it seemed like it was a blast. Like, based on the audience,
it was beyond. I'm not supposed to. We had a camera behind John filming the audience, and the guys who run the pyramid don't want us to use that angle too much because it may have been obnoxiously over capacity.
Yeah.
Like, it was.
Which looks good, I guess, but it doesn't look good for their licensing.
Oh yeah, no, So
looks good on camera though.
Let's just hit the censor button. Yeah, it was absolutely wild, and the Ovoids thing came out, and people who've heard it love it, and it's slowly trickling out there. I'm proud of it. I don't regret it for a second. But then this band that's putting out an LP on my label this month, they're called the Pink Noise. They started off in the early 2000s with a label called Sacred Bones out of Brooklyn. They do like the John Carpenter stuff, the David Lynch stuff,
oh cool,
Zola Jesus, and Moon Duo, and a lot of gothy punk stuff. So they started off on that label, and they fluctuated between a full band lineup and a solo project for this guy Mark Sonner. And Mark drummed for the Ovoids. Got in touch with me.
Oh, it's all connected.
So there's a thread that goes through all of my releases so far, it seems.
Yeah.
And they said, listen, we got to get this album out. The vinyl's already being pressed. We're paying for it. We just need a label for it. Can we put it out on yours? Once we recoup the costs, you can keep whatever profits are made. I'm like, it's a win-win-win. Like, so I get a new record on my label. It's on vinyl, and I potentially get to make some money off it.
You don't need to put anything in anymore.
I don't have to put anything into it, except for like social media stuff. So I'm having a blast. I'm getting so much reach right now because all you do is tag things.
Yeah.
And then as soon as somebody likes it, it's
for sure. Yeah. The right person shares it, you're good, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You tag someone's name and their friends are like, oh, something's going on. You're playing in Kamloops.
Yeah.
And people who have checked it in Kamloops might see something like, oh, what's going on in Kamloops?
Yeah, it's crazy how much you can tweak that to get the right people too.
Oh yeah, it's this digital manipulation.
I love it. Yeah. It's kind of evil and insidious, but it can work for the right purposes.
Yeah, exactly. In the hands of the right people.
Yeah.
It's a very positive thing. So it's been a wild ride, and I've been meeting really cool and interesting people, and people have been reaching out to me. And, the flip side of the coin is as soon as someone finds out that you have a record label, they're like, hey,
I have a band.
I record in my bedroom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I can't tour because I have a family and obligations, but the music will sell itself. I'm like, well, that's not how.
That doesn't work.
That is not how it works ever.
At least with the bands that are defunct, there's the built-in audience for them.
Yeah, exactly. They're kind of pre-installed, so I lucked out with that, especially since I haven't really done any vinyl. I haven't done any vinyl yet. Everything's available on vinyl that I've put out. But eventually, if something happens, if I win the lottery and I can get the bands to agree on a deal, then I'll repress everything. It's the War on Music Personality Crisis release is cheaper on Discogs than it would be for me to press them themselves.
Right, so there's no point, right?
If someone says, is it on vinyl, I just reply with a link.
Yeah.
Like, just get it here.
Well, I mean, I might as well help those guys out too, right? Because they do a lot of cool stuff for them.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, is it, at what point, I'm trying to figure out a word. How is it growing to the point where now this is becoming more of a thing than you thought it was going to be in the outset? Like, are you actively kind of doing this all every day now? That it's
no, not as much as I'd like. With the record label stuff, I don't advertise as much as I really should, but stuff is selling. Like I'm at the post office every other day, which is kind of weird. I feel like I should be hustling a bit more, and if I did hustle more, I'd probably be pushing more product. But I have a real job.
Yeah. Like most people involved in some way in the music scene, right?
In the music scene. But then I started up a second side business, which I might actually be leaving my job in a month because it's getting stupid busy.
Yeah.
So I might be able to, with that, I'd be able to, while stuff is boiling on the stove, I can go out in my garden, stick a couple of CDs in the dirt and make a stupid post.
Make a CD tree,
tag like dirt, gardening, and then get a whole bunch of people on Instagram who don't care about punk rock music being like, well, okay, why not?
Yeah, what is this? Follow, and then
maybe someone will follow. Yeah. Maybe it'll be someone like Jello Biafra being like, I didn't know about this guy.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the benefit of having these old bands that are now like long gone too, right? Is that, like you're saying, they have all these stories of playing with all these big name people. Like one of those people could find it and like, oh shit, I remember Stretch Marks, or I remember Personality Crisis from we played this show in '82 or something, right? And then
they've got a platform where they're like, like Chris Walter, who did some of the liner notes, he's made a name for himself with all of his books. He's like published 35 books or something. He just has a new one called Misfits and Miscreants. And
I feel like every day I see something. It's a new book. Like I remember he had a few of them came out 10 years ago, and now someone told here's his 39th book.
He's like the literary version of The Fall. It's just you turn around and there's like a new thing.
Yeah.
But he flew out for the Personality Crisis gig because in his biography about them, he basically said they existed for a short time. They burned bright, and then you're never going to see them again. And then this reunion happens, and he's like, well, shit. So he flew out, and he was working the merch counter right next to me. For about half the gig, he didn't realize that I was the guy.
Okay.
I got no tattoos. I'm the least punk-looking dude.
Right.
quote-unquote punk-looking dude you'll ever see.
Well, and that guy's got head tattoos.
And he's got, he looks like he's wearing a hoodie all the time, but it's just his skin.
Yeah.
So when he realized that I was the Patrick that he had been emailing with for the last 6 months, he kind of flipped his lid, and he's covered in ink. He's a teddy bear. He's the sweetest guy in the world, and he ended up interviewing me for this book and mailed me a copy. And got like 5 pages of space in it. It's pushed a couple of units. It's
cool. That's awesome.
It's the weirdest feeling.
Do you think there's a renewed interest in some of this stuff? Like, I mean, I guess it was a couple of years ago now. Sheldon Burney's book about the local scene,
Missing
which is a
Like
great
Teeth.
book. Yeah, great book. And that kind of reignited, I guess, a bit of interest in some of these bands that had kind of been dormant for a while. They've been long gone.
Yeah.
And I mean, I read that and I was like, oh shit, I've heard of a lot of these bands, but now I want to kind of dig and see if I can find some of it, because just getting the oral history. And then now, you're reissuing this stuff. There's been like a few documentaries and things coming out about the local scene.
Yeah.
And it just seems like there's, I don't know if it's just the current generation now is wanting to go back and find what came before them or what. I don't know, but
I think that's a big factor. When the day that I met you a couple weeks ago, this kid came up to my table and he sees the Personality Crisis CD and he says, "Oh my God, I was at my parents' place in their basement going through boxes of books, and Chris Walter's book was there." And I think about like when I used to go to my Baba's place and go through books, but it was like books from the old country, old folk albums.
for sure.
But now this new generation is finding books that are just published like a decade ago, and it's super surreal. But there's that archaeological hunt for something that maybe other people haven't heard, or maybe what's in your backyard. I think people like it. I think people also like having something that they're proud of. I was living in Australia for a bit, and when people found out that I was from Winnipeg, they're like, the first thing was, "Oh my God, do you know Propagandy?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, yeah, but I see Chris Hanna
in line at the grocery store.
In line at the grocery store, so it's not really that big a deal." Or, I see him at a farmer's market and we strike up a conversation.
Yeah.
Or John.
It's actually more likely than a grocery store for that guy, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. Or John K. Sampson at a board game cafe, just doing his thing with his wife, and people are just losing their minds. But
because they're so huge in their minds. It's like the same thing, I guess, as any other artist really that you like from like DC or California or whatever. And it's the same thing, but they
drink milk,
right?
Or almond milk, just like the rest of us. They're just real, pants on one leg at a time.
Yeah.
I think people when they hear these bands. And when they have a band that they like, and then that band says, "Oh, influenced by," you always kind of go down that rabbit hole. It's a lot easier now with the internet. It's got like the wiki rabbit hole where you open up a new tab
clicks,
and you have.
But I think I feel like people do that less than now, though. I mean, yes, you can do the Wikipedia rabbit hole, but I think a lot of people, the way they listen to music now is not really geared towards that. It's just a bunch of singles thrown at you. Whereas before, and this might be just me being like, get off my lawn, damn kids thing, but when I used to get a record or a CD or a tape or whatever, I would look at the liner notes, look who wrote the songs, and then find if it's a song I liked and it's not by the actual artist, I'd go dig and find out who it was.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's as much of that going on now because most people are on Spotify or whatever. They don't have liner notes. They're getting automatic suggestions.
I think the way that it's going now is just that kind of instant. Like Pandora was the one that kind of started with algorithms, where it's like, oh, you like this kind of tempo, this instrumentation. You
might like this song.
You might like this, and here's where you go. When Pandora was available in Canada, I thought it was great because it would play a bunch of bands that I eventually fell in love with and went out and bought their product.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of times now, I've met a lot of people who don't understand the music passion thing. I know a lot of geeks. Like I surround myself with. Yeah, well,
people, you're running a record label. Obviously, you're in that world.
But even before that, I was always obsessed with music, and I'd see a gig poster, and I'd be like, well, the OCs are playing with Creepoid. Yeah. Who the hell are Creepoid? Then I'd dig, or I'd be like, CD's only $8. Shopping cart shit. I'll just take a chance on it. It's like flipping through a stack of vinyl and finding a sleeve that just melts your brain and just picking it up.
And it's worth it just based on that to check it out.
And there's a few. I think there's a few people who can still.
There's a community of people who do the best that they do still.
Yeah, they want to find the next new thing, or they want to take a chance. They want to take a leap. And there's other people who just don't care about it. They care about something else, and that's okay. But for me, it's boring. Like if I can't have a conversation with somebody about music, it's always the first thing, like whether it's a date or meeting someone. You're like, so what do you listen to? Oh, whatever's on the radio, and I'm like, there's a cheese there's some cheese there that I'm
Yeah,
going to go nosh on.
Well, I feel like I agree with you 100%. I'm the same way also.
Yeah.
I remember I used to go to people's houses if it was a new person I was meeting or whatever.
First thing you do is you go to the
record. They don't have it anymore though. So it's you can't.
Can I scroll through your iTunes?
Yeah, see, that's awkward, right? You don't know. It seems too personal to go through someone's phone or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what do you listen to? It's like, oh, here, I'll show you. I'm like, I don't want to see that. I want to see.
I want to see the spine staring out at me.
Yeah, exactly. And then I can judge based on. I feel bad saying it, but I can decide whether.
I want to see what condition you keep your music in.
Yeah, exactly. Do we have anything in common right away? Yeah.
When people have CDs, they're like, oh, they scratch so easy. I'm like, yeah, if you don't take care of them. Like, my CDs look like they're brand new.
Yeah. I actually love how CDs are going out of style. I mean, it's not good for you running a CD label, but in the sense that people are getting rid of them, and you can find so much cool stuff for super cheap. And like, I still listen to CDs.
I love CDs.
CDs, taped records, whatever. I don't care. I'll listen to anything. And the amount of stuff, like, I've been kind of over the past year or so been hoarding more than usual local music. Like, anything I can find by a local band, as long as it's a good one. I will track down and get as many copies of it as I can, just to have, because I think a lot of that stuff,
just to archive it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the amount of stuff in thrift stores now is nuts. Like, you go to Lake Valley Village and find, like, sometimes at a time 5 or 6 things, and these great bands from like the 90s to the early 2000s that are just being. Like you get like this is a treasure trove right here.
Out to like Garden City, Value Village, and basically all of the Scalaweens that I used to work, all of those bands are there. I'm like, holy crap, Bailey's.
You used to work at the Scalaweens?
I've been at the West End for like 16 years now.
I played a bunch of those. I was in Graffa's Army, which was one of those 90s Scala bands. Yeah, so
I've probably seen you play
probably. That was like 98 to 2000 or so. But I was at a bunch of those shows too. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, Bailey's Car has a CD. Happy Nipple Project has a CD. The Barrymores and the all those bands. Yeah,
and all that stuff's gone now, which is all.
It's one of my friends just found. Oh God, was it an Insaniac CD or?
I have one of those and a tape actually. A tape with theirs.
Yeah, but she's like, I just found this and I can't believe it. And like, it was obviously made in MS Paint, but the disc was professionally pressed. Yeah. And it was a band that was, making a go of it.
In addition to the label, you also are involved in this hot sauce thing, right? Like, what's the connection between the two?
Funny enough, there is one.
Because you were, I guess, like, just to give some context here, the way that I first sort of met you, not really, was at
the Goodwill Farmers Market.
There, the farmers market thing, and I saw hot sauce and CDs, and I was drawn to that. But I had both my kids with me, and they were kind of pulling me in different directions.
Yeah,
so
I remember that distinctly.
Basically, all I got was a bit of hot sauce spilled on my hand and my daughter's hand, and then we left. So
you had to take off.
I didn't even get to.
Yeah, I was. So the record label thing is kind of a passive. Like, it's active when something is coming out, and it's active when I have to pack stuff up and mail it off, and when I'm doing all the promo work. But it's pretty passive. Like, stuff, I figure out what's going to come out. While I'm waiting for it to come out, I'm just, I'm promoting it and whatever. So I had just quit my job at a restaurant, which was kind of funding all of the stuff I was doing. I went to a big box warehouse store, and it was absolutely miserable, but I was making decent money. And I started buying hot sauce, and there's that YouTube show where celebrities eat hot wings.
Yeah, I've seen the show, Hot Ones or whatever. Yeah,
Hot Ones, it's kind of like this, except I'm not being.
But you're eating hot wings, yeah.
I'm not being fed right now. So I really got into hot sauce, like just like everybody, and after I quit my job at the big box warehouse store, I figured it would be cheaper to make hot sauce for myself. So
have you ever done it before?
No.
Okay.
No, I went online, looked up like a basic pepper recipe, and then I just started messing with it, and I figured that mango would be something.
Yeah, mango's good with hot sauce.
Yeah, mango's great with hot sauce. Yeah. So I figured I'd give it a shot, and it just worked out. Like the first batch I made, it was amazing. Friends would come over for pizza or just to eat anything, and then they'd just be dolloping hot sauce on. They said, "Man, if you sold this, I'd make it."
Yeah.
So then I took it to the taco wagon where Stretch Mark
So it all connects again.
Works, and he's like, "Man, this is delicious." He came over to take pictures for the Stretch Marks release. And he's like, man, this is delicious, and he tried it out. And then I made a second flavor. I did a blueberry ghost pepper, and I brought a bottle to him at the taco shop, and he tried it on a taco and said, holy shit, you have something here. You need to be your own boss. Once you be your own boss, you're never going to want to work for anybody else ever again. So my girlfriend at the time pushed me into getting my food handling certificate. I made up a third flavor, did my raspberry scotch bonnet, and bought a bunch of bottles, sterilized them, and filled them up. Made a post on Facebook, and within like 20 hours, 51 bottles were out the door.
That's amazing.
And I made a bit of a profit, so I threw it back in, bought more bottles, bought more stuff, and came up with a name, concept. My friend Connor did all the graphic design work for me, and it just kind of took off. So it's been about 6 months now, and I've sold. I'm encroaching on 3,000 bottles sold.
That's incredible. Wow.
And it's just farmers markets and
That's
stuff.
awesome.
So
Yeah, that's really good.
looking at commercial
It's all in
kitchens
person.
around.
It's all you're just sitting there.
Yeah, it's all yelling at
amazing.
people walking by and being like, "Hey, you with
That's
the beard
awesome.
and children,
Yeah.
making messes."
Well, it was good. The small amount I got to taste was actually pretty
Yeah.
good. I dug it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then I came out with the 4th flavor of Christmas, and it's and a 5th flavor is coming soon. That Dragon Fruit Carolina Reaper, and that's taken up a lot of my time. So now I might actually have to leave my job, and I'm terrified about it because it's being my own boss.
Yeah.
But I went home yesterday to visit my parents, and I mentioned it to my mom, who, ever since I was a kid, was go into trades or get a job where you can get a good pension, and then when you're 55, that's when you can have fun. I'm like,
sounds like my parents do. Yeah.
holy shit, that sounds like the most depressing life in the world. Like, I'm gonna wait until my hips are barely working and all my cartilage is dried up and dusty before I can start having fun. So I went home yesterday, mentioned it to my mom, and she went from being that lady to seeing me in the newspaper and hearing me on the CBC a couple of times. And she's like, you know what? I believe in you. Just do it. Which was kind of like the clincher. And my friends are laughing at me that I needed my mommy's approval to do it, but it means a lot. Like I love my mom, and as much as she pisses me off, I really want her to be proud of me. So she thought I was wasting my money with a record label, and then PC Stretch Marks blew up, and we got like a full write-up in the, like a 2-page write-up in the Free Press.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. Yeah.
And she cut it out for me, and she showed all of her friends at church, and everyone's like, "Holy crap,
it's actually a thing." Yeah,
it's actually a thing. So now she's just like, "You're gonna do what you're gonna do, but you seem to know what you're doing." I don't understand this internet world, but make sure you come visit once a week at least. So
as long as you're still doing that, you're good, right?
Yeah. So it all worked out. So it's just like hot sauce and punk rock, and I started taking all my CDs with me to my farmers markets, and now I just.
Do you get a lot of sales of CDs at the farmer markets, or?
Not a lot, but enough to help me buy groceries.
That's
like
awesome.
My first sale at the last market I was at, a lady was walking by. She walked right by the hot sauces and double taked the CDs, picked up the PC and Stretch Marks, and she's like, "I know Mark, and my husband went to school with Mitch and Richard, and he has to have these." So she bought. That was my first sale. I didn't sell a hot sauce yet. I was waiting to make a sale, and then my CDs went, and now I'm quasi-managing Colin Bryce from Dub Rifles, and he was also in Discharge, and I'm managing his band Mohair Sweets.
Cool.
So we go out for coffee once a week, and I help him with his stuff, and right now he's paying me in CDs and records.
It's awesome.
Which is...
Yeah, can't complain about that, right? Yeah.
I'm totally fine.
Well, the Dub Rifles actually another band that had that reissue that came out. Sundowning put out there.
Yeah, Chris put out the Dub Rifles thing, and it's
a really good collection too.
I absolutely love it, and I didn't know anything about the Dub Rifles until I saw this local documentary called Piss on You.
Yeah,
and it had like a kind of who's who
of that era of the Winnipeg scene.
Of the Winnipeg punk scene, which is super fucked up to watch for me, because I didn't know it was a thing. I saw it, and all of these guys that I dealt with making the PC Stretch Marks thing happen, and just started crossing paths. It's like I went over to Mitch's place for coffee, and Norm from The Unwanted shows up with his kids, and I've seen this documentary, and Norm is this guy at the front of the stage, and he's commanding, and he's pissing off the crowd. And he's the sunniest, friendliest, always laughing guy, and his kids are adorable, and he's just this amazing dad.
Just 30 years later, too, right?
And you're like, what the? Yeah, so you're watching this documentary, and you're learning about these punks, and they're all like kind of domesticated now. And it's surreal. It was amazing seeing, because it was more of like a who's who than like a narrative for me. So it was.
It's super cool.
It was wild. It was just. It's such a weird.
But that documentary is another example too. Just kind of preserving all this old stuff from that area. It's really neat.
Yeah, I think when I was growing up, there were a lot of bands in Winnipeg that I just didn't care about because they were from Winnipeg. It's like, what's going on out there? And then the big one for me was Duotang. Duotang was the first band that I
had them on the show a couple years ago.
I love them.
Awesome guys.
They're one of my. I think they are my favorite Winnipeg band.
Yeah, they're great band.
I played their drummer in a commercial.
Oh yeah.
For their new album when it came out, we went out to some weird bad hotel in the North End, and we rented a room, and we were getting yelled at by the locals. They're like, "Are you filming a porno?" We're like, I mean, we probably make more money. But we filmed how Duotang broke up. So I played.
Okay. I think I saw that actually. That sounds very familiar. Yeah, yeah.
And then at the end they have the pizza with the fried chicken on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the breakup was over what they're going to eat after a gig, and I played Sean, which was kind of a weird dream come true. I used to, when I was a kid volunteering at the West End, Chris Pegas was good friends with both of them, and they'd come in after hours, and I'd see Duotang, and I'd be like, oh my god, I can't believe these guys who I listen to nonstop are in front of me.
Yeah.
You know, they shook my hand, learned my name, and then we started seeing each other, and they'd see me, and they'd be like, oh, hey, Patrick, and I'd be like, oh my god, famous people are talking to me. Why is this happening? And they'd go to Vancouver, and they'd be like, hey, we just played this gig, and we brought back this double 7-inch that's out of print for you. I'm like, cool. I couldn't believe what was going on. So they asked me to be Sean, and at the Personality Crisis gig, we were talking about the commercial, and I was bragging about how I'm a huge fan of Duotang, and now I'm in this advertising for them. And everyone's like, oh, did you play the hot one? I'm like, oh yeah, I played Sean. They're like, oh. And I told Sean, and the whole group laughed except for Sean's like, why the fuck would you tell me that story? That's such an... it's pretty funny, but once I started realizing that there's quite a bit of talent here in Winnipeg, and a lot of places now have opened up in the last couple of years, like the Goodwill and the Handsome Daughter, XQ's, Mr. Bones even.
Yeah,
his old pizza place.
Super bizarre, yeah. But there's punk shows there now.
And there's punk shows there now, and you can buy pizza, and it was a foreign thing for Winnipeg, being like, why would you put a stage in a restaurant? But like in Australia, there's Frankie's Pizza, and a lot of bands come and play Frankie's Pizza. There's venues in bowling alleys where you can bowl and eat food and see a gig. It's wild, and there's just places popping up that are giving bands that don't have a lot of cash and want to get up on stage opportunities. And Winnipeg is such an amazing scene for that too. We're so isolated that when it gets to minus 50, you just hunker down in a basement
and start a band.
And record a bunch of shit, and then hey, I got a friend who's learning how to do sound. Oh, can he master it? He doesn't know what that is, but sure.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And then something comes out, a band will put out.
CDRs and then those are the things that I find 15 years later at Valley Village. I'm like, holy shit, someone gave this away?
Yeah.
And then,
when did this even happen?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's something that needs to be done, and for me it was just a matter of wanting it and making it happen. And I feel like a wicked sense of pride about it too, because I've been told by Walter and Mitch and Richard that there's been a whole ton of labels over the last however many years who've tried to reissue the Stretch Marks or Personality Crisis, and it was about to happen, and then it fell through, and it was about to happen, and it fell through. And when I was calling Matt Vanette about the Stretch Marks and PC stuff, he wouldn't answer my calls because he's been bothered about this kind of stuff so many times. Someone was doing a project on the Winnipeg punk scene and got in touch with him, and he lent them a photo album, so personal photos and stickers and documents. And then her project fell through, and she just never got back in touch to return the documents. So he tracked her down, and he got his stuff back, but he was so sour about that.
I can see that, that would be...
So when I got in touch with Doug about the photos in the PC Stretch Marks sets, I went over to his house, we went through everything, and I said, we talked about money a little bit, what do you think? And he gave me a dollar amount, and I pulled my wallet out and paid him on the spot.
Nice.
And he got the money, his eyes went wide, and his cell phone came out, and he texted Matt saying, when this number calls you, you answer. And that trust was built, and one of my favorite things was Colin Bryce works at Long and McQuaid, so I went up, I saw him the first time, and I said, hey, I got in touch with Richard, I'm getting the ball started on this Personality Crisis thing. And he says, yeah, well, good luck getting them to agree to that. And then a couple of months down the line, he's like, well, they agreed to it, but good luck getting it off the ground. And then another month after, he's like, well, all right, so it's off the ground. Good luck getting them to start talking about it. All right, we got them talking about it. Good luck getting them to reunite for this gig.
It's always another...
it's always the one thing. And then he's at the gig, and 6 of the 7 members of PC were there, except Jimmy didn't show up. And Colin's like, he just sneers, yeah, well, Jim's not here. But after that, he's like, holy shit, this kid actually got it. He got it done. So now he's a good friend of mine, and I'm doing the Mohair Sweets.
That's awesome. Well, and I guess just having done those 2 CDs, too, the other ones as well. You kind of have the trust that people can see. Okay, well, obviously
that's the big one.
These bands obviously trusted this guy to put their music in a proper way, like that kind of tributes what they did, right? So,
well, even and with the original vinyl pressings, like vinyl wasn't the whole 180 gram virgin vinyl stuff. It was like we melted down all these garbage bags and we're
It kind of plays, yeah.
and it kind of plays.
Yeah.
It's it's melted a bit because it was +5.
Yeah.
But Craig did an amazing job remastering from all the original, as many original sources as we could. Some of them couldn't find the originals, so we had to use what we had. On the Personality Crisis set, there's a 7-song demo that was recorded in San Francisco in an actual studio.
Cool.
That there was one master tape that the original guitarist Walter had that he stole before he left the band.
So it still exists because of that? Because he stole it? Like, is that why?
Yeah, so I was at Walter's house, and he's like, bet you never heard this, and he pulls out this one master tape.
Cool.
So we were originally going to do Creatures for Wild, the compilation tracks, and the 2 demos that are kind of readily available online. On one CD, and then this demo tape becomes available, and we're like, well, shit, now it's not going to fit, but we want to include it. So he turned it into a 2-disc thing. So it was all the studio stuff, then it was all the demo stuff on the second disc.
That's awesome.
It kind of sounds like shit because it's a 30-year-old cassette, but Craig did an amazing job, and it sounds like an archival recording, but it's there for posterity.
And
the fact that you even have it too. So it was. He brought out the bass. So the bass is Dwayne. You can hear some bass when it's quiet, but then it was always the guitars were to the front.
Super trebly,
Yeah, it was a super trebly mix, and now the bass is there, and it sounds insane. There was guitar parts that Mitch was like, I remember that live. I remember when Jim would do that live, but I never ever heard it on any of the 3 vinyl pressings.
Yeah.
And now it's there, like just a little thing during the bridge that he never heard. So Mitch, whenever I go to his place, it's still out. The CDs are out, and he listens to. He went from not giving a shit to listening to himself, and he air multi-instruments, and he sings along.
Nostalgia comes back,
When we first were listening to the masters at my house, I had everyone come over, and they brought beer and stuff like that. And Mitch got a bit tipsy, and he was controlling the volume knob, and he was singing karaoke to his own band. And I wished I could film it. Mitch is like I don't want my picture on the internet thing now, and now he's got his own Instagram account where he sells his art.
Yeah, I think I saw that actually.
This is pretty cool. Yeah. Which is the weirdest thing, and he makes mix CDs, and if people want to pay him for art in mix CDs, he's gonna do it.
Yeah,
he's just one of those guys. So he's getting out there, and he's kind of embracing this whole.
That's awesome.
This whole thing.
Elder statesman kind of deal, yeah.
And at the gig, they made more money per person in that gig than they've ever made from that band.
Wow.
So they were super happy with me because I didn't want to cut of the door. I'm just like, whatever I sell, and whatever merch I sell, we'll split 50-50.
Cool.
That wasn't CDs, whatever, T-shirts and
that's
shit
awesome.
like that. Yeah.
Cool.
So they made a ton. So it was great.
So
they're happy.
If people are hearing about these releases for the first time on here, what's the best thing for them to do to find out more, how to get them, how to hear them in the first place? Like,
so you can go to soundsescaping.bandcamp.com. All of the releases are available for streaming on there. The Pink Noise one isn't up yet.
It probably will be by the time this comes out, I would imagine, because we've got a bit of a backlog of stuff, so this will be out for a while. So
it'll be up on there. That one's on vinyl. I don't know how many copies I'm going to have of that by the end of their tour. But the CDs are all available physically. They all have really nice booklets. The Forbidden Dimension, Stretch Marks, and PC ones are all 24 to 28 pages.
Okay.
The Ovoids one is 8 pages, but it's got a little history of the band and a visual discography. You can get in touch on Facebook, on Instagram. You can get in touch via soundsescaping.com. It's not updated as much because social media is way easier to update.
For sure, yeah.
But I don't have a store on there. You just kind of like tell me what you want. We figure out where you are, and then we can meet up.
Right.
If you're in Winnipeg, just get in touch and we'll set it up. I'm not very hard to get a hold of.
Cool.
Especially
and you're also at farmers markets.
And also the farmers markets with the 1882 fruit-based hot sauce.
Right. And there's an Instagram for that as well.
And there's an Instagram for that as well, which has the just terrible photoshops and pop culture references from that are about 2 decades late.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's the way to do the internet, I think.
That's how you do the internet.
Yeah.
People don't like slick. People see something gaudy and ugly, and that's what makes them slow down. It's like roadkill.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my god, that's disgusting. But I'm slowing down.
I want to try it now. Yeah, for sure. Cool. Okay, yeah. People should check those out, and definitely, obviously, check out the CDs and vinyl when that's out. And if you want to hear more episodes of this show, go to witchpolice.com. There's all probably 290.
We got rubberneckers. What's happening?
Coworkers.
Oh.
We got like 290 some episodes up there, maybe even 300 by the time you hear this. And that distracted me like crazy.
It's okay. That's what editing is for.
I'm going to forget to edit this. So
I know.
But UMFM also plays these episodes on midnights on Sundays.
Sweet.
And those are older ones, so it's mid-April now or mid-May recording this.
Yeah.
It might not air till like September or something. But the cool thing about that is it's just like an extra bonus. You can always get them online, but if you happen to be tuning in at midnight, there's an old episode of some band you forgot I interviewed. kind of get a second wind. So.
Or a third wind.
Or a third wind, yeah, exactly, yeah.
I'm super excited. I appreciate this.
But anyway, yeah, thanks again for talking to me. This is a very interesting conversation.
Thanks.
And
Thanks for talking to me.
I'm glad you're doing this. I'm glad, I mean, because I really, as people who listen to the show know, I'm really kind of obsessive about preserving local stuff if I can. And it's cool, always cool to see other people doing that. Whether it's reissuing something, whether it's, like just...
Issuing something, just getting something done.
Just getting it out
Pulling
there.
the trigger,
yeah. Exactly. Making it available in the first place is yeah, for sure. So.